Chapter 25. Wen was taking her coat off in her office as the other members of the team started to arrive back at base. It was 10 o'clock at night, and she could feel adrenaline running through her like a steam train without brakes. What was it they said about adrenaline? The hormone of flight or fright? Well, she was terrified right now. One of her officers was missing, and she had a terrible feeling about the outcome of this next chapter in the murder story. Richard barged in. "What the hell's happened, boss?" "Calm down, Richard." "Calm down? You're telling me to calm down when that psychopath has Becky?" "We don't know where Becky is, Richard, so stop jumping to conclusions. Come on, I'll brief the team." Wen waited for Richard to leave, then walked out of her office behind him. Instantly silence fell. "It would seem that Becky Wainwright has gone missing," she said. Shocked faces looked at each other, and the chatter buzzed again. Apparently, she received a call from a man who said his name was Joe Patel, saying that Elliot had been taken ill at work, and she needed to get to Warrington General Hospital ASAP. We only know this because Becky called Elliot's mum and relayed the message to her. When Mrs. Wainwright Sr. got to the hospital, there was no record of Elliot being admitted and no signs of Becky. "Do we know whose phone the call was made from?" Cassie asked. "Jake, start on that now, please. Who called her and from where? Richard, did we get permission sorted to look at the Benson unit files yet?" "Yes, Ma'am. It was sorted earlier today. I was going to get onto it first thing tomorrow." "Get onto it now. Wake people up if you have to. I want to know the name of Martin Grimes' best mate. Cassie, go and bring Mr. Lowry in, and then search his house." "Yes, Ma'am." Cassie went to her desk and picked up her phone. "And we have another lead of sorts," said Wen. "I discovered this evening that what happened so far runs according to the plot of a story posted on the internet. The murders, how they were done, and the threat to a police officer." Richard sat up straight. "What book? Who wrote it?" "That I don't know. The author goes by the name of Avenging Angel. It was written last year, but only ever submitted to the dark web as far as we know." "Well, Jake can trace the person who posted that, surely." Jake put his hands up in protest. "Hey, mate, I'm good, but I'm not that good." "What? We can't trace where it came from?" Wen held Richard's gaze. "I have taken advice on this, and it would appear, as Jake says, that it is almost impossible to find the author. We don't even know if the person who wrote it carried out the murders. They could just be a fan, but the story said there would be a third murder, and it would be a police officer." All tasks having been assigned, Wen knew that she could trust her team to get on with their work while she interviewed Becky's husband. He had phoned Wen directly to tell her that Becky had gone missing. Could he be a suspect? Of course he could, and until Wen knew differently, he would be treated as such. One of Wen's officers accompanied her into the interview room, a young DC called Colin Briggs. He was clever, enthusiastic, still wet behind the ears, but had possibilities. Wen took a seat opposite Elliot, and it was obvious from his face that he'd been crying. However, Wen had sat opposite many sobbing people, so distraught they needed medical attention, and found out later that she had been talking to the killer of the person that they had wailed about so convincingly. "Hello, Elliot, how are you doing?" she asked in a neutral tone. "I'm going to question you under caution about Becky's disappearance. Do you understand that?" "But why? You can't imagine for one moment that I would hurt one hair of her head, surely." It's how we need to do things at this point, Elliot. Wen nodded to Colin, who pressed a button on the recording machine. Elliot Wainwright, you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand? After adding the time and date they began, Elliot nodded. For the recording, can you answer, please? Yes, I understand. This was said between gritted teeth. Right. Tell me how you realised that Becky was missing. I've already been through this with you on the phone. He almost shouted the words. Yes, but we need to look at the information in more depth. Elliot, I know this is hard, but all we want to do is find Becky alive. Elliot began crying again, but he managed to calm himself and answer Wen's question. My mother called me to ask if I was okay. And how did she call you? On my mobile, of course. His impatience was palpable. Where was your mobile? Wen asked, her voice direct, without emotion. In the pocket of the lab coat that I wear at work. She'd called a few times by the time I picked up, because I'd been in a meeting for an hour and my coat was hung in my office. You didn't take the phone into the meeting? No, we're asked not to, and we can be reached by landline for anything important. And I'm presuming your mother didn't know that number? Well, no. He met Wen's gaze, his eyes haunted. Did Becky? Yes, but she never used it. What did your mother say? Impatience was creeping into Wen's questions by now. That she'd had a call from Becky to say I'd been taken to hospital, and it sounded urgent. But Becky didn't try your mobile? No. What happened then? I tried to call Becky, but it just kept going to voicemail. I kept trying from my car as I drove home, but nothing. When I got home, there was food in the oven and the kitchen was its usual mess after Becky had been cooking. At this, he smiled briefly. But Becky wasn't there. And what did you do next? I went outside to see if her car was there. She had to park it around the corner while she was staying, and it was. But her car keys were on the pavement. That's when I panicked and called you. Your mother said Becky mentioned one of your colleagues had phoned her. Joe Patel, is that right? Yes, that's what Mum said, or at least that's what she thought Becky said. She was in a bit of a flat by this time, as you can imagine. Do you have a colleague called Joe Patel? Or know someone of that name? No, I've never heard of him. Elliot sat back and pushed his hands through his hair. What did you do then? I phoned you, and you said to come to the station. I've been trying Becky's phone every 5 minutes, but nothing. What do you think's happened to her? We don't know, Elliot. Well, sitting here asking me stupid questions isn't going to find her, is it? Elliot's voice had risen in volume, and he was staring at her. He's got her, hasn't he? He's going to kill her, isn't he? The desperation in Elliot's voice was pitiful. Wen touched the hand of the wreck of a man in front of her, and for the first time during the interview, her stern facade cracked. We don't know anything for sure, Elliot. I just know we need to find Becky, and quickly. As she walked back to the squad room with Colin, he asked why Becky hadn't called Elliot to check if he was okay. It's strange that she didn't try to contact him. I've been thinking about that too, said Wen. Maybe she just didn't get the chance. Richard had been on the phone to the Benson unit for 20 minutes now, and he felt like he was getting the runaround. He had been put on hold 4 times, redirected 5 times, and was now waiting to hear from the night manager, who, apparently, was dealing with an incident. "This is urgent," he insisted, as he was told yet again that his message would be passed on to the person in charge, and that they would get back to him as soon as possible. "So is the incident, detective," was all he got in the way of a reply, and then they hung up on him. "Oh, fuck this!" He slammed the phone down and got up. Grabbing his coat, phone and keys, he headed for the door. "I'm off to the Benson unit," he called to anyone who might be listening. Cassie knocked on David Lowry's front door. It was now 11 p.m, and she had 2 other cars full of officers with her, plus the 3 in her car. Blue lights illuminated Lowry's drive like a Smurf's disco. After a second round of hammering on the door with no effect, Cassie was just about to give permission to break the door down when a very blurry-eyed man opened it about 6 inches. "What the hell is all this?" he managed to slur. "Mr. David Lowry, I'm arresting you in connection with the disappearance of Rebecca Wainwright." As Cassie continued with the caution, the man's face took on a look of complete disbelief. "I don't know what the hell you're talking about," he muttered. "Can you go with these officers, sir, while we search your house? Thank you." Cassie flashed the warrant at David as he was led away. "Right, guys, let's turn this place upside down." Nothing. Wen felt she was grasping at straws. "No, ma'am," said Cassie. "We found nothing to make me suspect that anything abnormal had happened in that house. Socko are there now dusting for fingerprints and looking to see if we missed anything. However, we did find these." Cassie held up an evidence bag with a collection of keys inside. "We've checked, and one of them is Becky's front door key." Was this finally the light at the end of the tunnel? Right then, let's go and have a chat to Mr. Lowry. Our doctor says he's okay to interview now that we've poured several cups of black coffee down his neck. "I think throwing up might have helped too," said Wen with a slight smile. Down in the interview room, where only a few hours before she had sat opposite Elliot Wainwright, she now faced a sorry-looking David Lowry. He was pale, red-eyed, and his breath would have taken paint off a surface at 50 yards. "How are you feeling now, Mr. Lowry?" asked Wen, though as long as he could be questioned, she didn't give a damn about his well-being. "I feel like shit, and I want a lawyer. I'm not well enough to be here." Wen had anticipated this and had already contacted the duty lawyer to come in. Of course. She nodded to Cassie, who left the room, and reappeared moments later with a guy who looked marginally better than Lowry. He unbuttoned his crumpled jacket and sat down. "Hello, Mr. Lowry. I'm Robert Shepherd, duty solicitor." "I don't want him. I want my solicitor, Penelope Milton." There was nothing they could do. Lowry had the right to legal representation of his choice. But if his, no doubt expensive lawyer didn't get her arse into the station quickly, Lowry would have to go with what was on offer. Frustrated by the delay, Wen and Cassie went back to the office and got coffee. "Let's go over what we have," Wen said to Cassie as they sat down in Wen's room. Jake had told them as they came back into the office that he had traced the call made to Becky. It had been from a pay-as-you-go mobile outside Elliot's flat, and it hadn't been used since. Neither had Becky's mobile. "I wonder what Richard got from the mad hospital," said Cassie. Wen gave her a scathing look. "I take it you and your loved ones have never suffered from mental health issues." Cassie looked slightly embarrassed and got up. I'll go and ask him. She went into the main room and looked around for her colleague. Anyone seen Richard? She asked. There were a few shakes of the head before the DC who sat next to Richard came off the phone. He's gone out somewhere, she said. Where? She shrugged her shoulders. Sorry, Sarge, I was on the phone. Cassie walked over and looked in the office diary. Staff had to sign in and out and write down their whereabouts for safety reasons, but there wasn't anything written by Richard's name. Just then another officer came into the room. Eric, you don't know where Richard went, do you? Yes, Sarge, smoke break. He mentioned Benson and Hedges. Eric frowned. I didn't know he smoked. He doesn't, you prat. He probably said the Benson unit. Oh, yeah, that was it, Eric thought. But that was ages ago. He should have been back by now. Cassie didn't like that at all. She looked up the number of the unit and it rang 10 times before anyone answered. Benson unit, Charge Nurse Jackson. How can I help you? Cassie introduced herself. I believe one of our officers was coming to see you for access to some case notes. He rang, definitely, but I didn't know he was coming over. I was going to call him back, but we've had a few problems tonight, and I've only just sat down. You mean he hasn't been to see you? No one from the police has been here in the last few hours. He did email the ADP one over, and I've just got the relevant files out. Detective Constable Richard Jones definitely hasn't been to see you in the last few hours. No, he hasn't. It's a bit like a police station here, officer. You can't just walk in and out. We're in lockdown at the moment anyway. We've had an incident here this evening. Yes, so I believe. Nothing serious, I hope? Serious enough. I was going to call you anyway, as one of your suspects has been here tonight. What do you mean? Martin Grimes. Martin Grimes? He's with you? He was, until he attacked a member of staff with a knife. And then he tried to hang himself.